Well, as you can see, it's fall in Atlanta. It's November the 6th, and here's a little garden update. This is my aquaponics unit. We have gotten just a ton of lettuce and spinach and other salad greens off this little unit. The beds are 2 feet by 3 feet. And what I did differently from most aquaponics units is I planted in thin cups or trays of garden soil, and then I set those down into the gravel beds where the roots could extend through the soil into the gravel. The goldfish are still there doing well. This little jalapeno is in a 4-inch pot with roots extending down into the gravel, and it is just lush and green. We've gotten a bunch of jalapenos off of it. There's another little pepper in there, and these chives kind of cascading over the side of the bed. Those are just sort of screaming for twice-baked potatoes. Now this lettuce that's growing here, I came out earlier this week with a scissor, and I actually harvested a gallon freezer bag of lettuce, and this is what's left. The beet greens are there. I want to make a beet green casserole for Thanksgiving, and more lettuce. So this has been a great surprise. Down here on the ground, I had started a tray of spinach for the aquaponics unit, and the bugs kind of attacked it, so I pulled it off and set it here on the ground to die and forgot about it. I sprayed it with a little soap solution, and the bugs went away, and we've been harvesting spinach out of this tray. But this has been a really neat surprise. It's kind of fun to sit out here on the back porch and listen to the water. But I've just been amazed at how much you can get off one of these little units. I guess what I need to do is, this one was cobbled together with scrap materials. I wanted to see how little I could invest to see if this actually worked, or whether this was just some crazy YouTube fantasy. I think I need to experiment with building these out of pretty wood and that type of thing, and maybe selling it. I think a lot of people would enjoy having an aquaponics unit on their back porch. Also here on the patio, my onions. I had started onions from seed, and they kind of went through the summer. When the heat came, they laid over, and I just never dug them out. I dug a few of them out. They were about plum sized, very nice flavor. And then fall came, and they greened back up, so I pulled them up. My neighborhood homeowners association is making me take down the beds that these were in, so I put them in buckets, and I can kind of station these around my garden, both as a source of onions next year and also pest control. This has been an amazing collard plant. As you can see from the stem, I have been eating collards, but it's in a self-watering bucket. And again, the bush lima beans over here, I got 2 crops of lima beans off these little plants. The self-watering 4x4 bed, these are turnips, and I cut them back. They were shading the collards, so I cut the turnips back and brought them to a little lady that lives in a rental house that I manage. And she told me that those were the tenderest, nicest turnip greens. And when a 70-year-old Georgia lady tells you that your turnip greens are wonderful, that's a real compliment. Again, these collards, I've been just kind of trimming the leaves and having collards for supper quite frequently. This bed has moved to the sun has moved to the point where this bed is in the shade. So I think it's probably just about done. But this is kind of what's here on the patio. Doing some composting over here. I'm going to be using the leaves. I'm going to mow over the leaves as they fall, and then grass clippings. You can see the Halloween pumpkins have made it into the compost pile. And per my mom, she advised me, she did a great garden at her last house in the flower beds around the house that she just composted, and so her advice to me was to just keep composting this area and then rake it smooth and use it for a garden spot next year. So I'm going to take her advice and see what happens. Up here on the wall, this little pepper plant. Love this guy. These little peppers will change your life. They're really, really hot. But what I found is I can take 2 of them, slice them up, and put them in my greens while I'm cooking them, and they come out really flavorful, and you don't have to use a bunch of hot sauce afterwards. I think this is parsley. I think these herbs are about ready to come inside. The basil is done for the year. It really doesn't, we've had a couple of frosts, and I'm not even sure what this guy is. I think it's supposed to be oregano. We'll have to see. The okras are done. I haven't pulled them out. We're having the family down for Thanksgiving, and I wanted them to see these crazy okras. And kind of the same with my peppers. I've got 1 or 2 bell peppers still hanging on, so I'm going to try to get a few more peppers off of these. The tomato plants, when the weather cooled off, they set a bunch of tomatoes, and now these frosts that we're having, the plants are kind of dying away. A friend of mine told me that I could pick these green tomatoes and wrap them in newspaper, and then they would ripen up as we go. The Romas are just absolutely covered with fruit, so I may give that a whirl. I would sure hate to lose all these tomatoes. Swiss chard. What a beautiful plant. Just had to grow them, and I understand I'm supposed to saute them in a little oil and serve them up, so I'm going to learn how to cook Swiss chard. And here's a little purple cabbage plant. The chards, the cabbages, the broccolis are doing real well. Here's a yellow chard, and you can see I've clipped a bunch of the leaves to give to other people. Broccoli right here. I don't know if he's got anything coming out yet. And again, some more of this rainbow Swiss chard. Let's walk over here. The other buckets, here's a couple of chards that aren't really setting the world on fire. But over here I've got some more buckets. This is an area in my lawn that, because of these big trees, the big trees pull all the moisture out of the soil. So I've never been able to grow grass or anything back here. And if I try to put a garden directly on the soil, the tree roots will come up and suck all the moisture. The hill is steep enough that if I try to mulch it, when it rains, the mulch just washes off. So I came out here with a shovel and just leveled off little flat places to put these buckets, and so I'm able to raise a bucket garden. These 2 are broccoli, and you can see down in there a little broccoli floret starting to form. And kind of looking down in this one, nothing yet, but really a pretty healthy looking plant with nice leaves. These are my cabbages. Even if they don't head up, I've got enough of these really beautiful cabbage leaves that I think I can make some slaw. This is going to be interesting when I actually harvest this cabbage, because they're under an oak tree, and a bunch of acorns are falling off the trees, and the acorns are falling down into these cabbage heads. So if the cabbage heads up, when I harvest it and cut it up, there's going to be a bunch of acorns in the heads of cabbage. And again, some purple cabbage here, and some more broccoli. So the garden fun is about over for this year. I'm going to have to keep myself busy with composting and planning next year's garden and knocking out the honey-do list, painting the house, and all those unfun things. But this has been a fun project for me, very relaxing. Instead of coming home and turning on the news and getting all upset about what's going on in the world, I can just come out here and pick cherry tomatoes off a plant, stand here and eat cherry tomatoes. and just enjoy watching this stuff grow. All right. Again, November 6th, 2011, and this is my backyard garden, first year gardener.